misses, but they don't miss out. Their day, their year, their joy.
Welcome to the Protected Zone, where we talk about everything that's related to the AFL. That's the greatest game in the universe. That's called Australian Rules Football, greatest game in the universe. My name is Eddie J, and on the other side of the planet is...
Hi, it's Linton Anam.
Now, which part of the universe are you in at the moment?
Well, I'm still in Japan at the moment. Still going around checking out the cherry blossom and bumping into many ugly, yanks. Oh, gosh, it's a cultural desert, cultural wasteland.
So it's still a cultural desert. So even the Americans, they don't follow anything at all about Australian rules football.
No, but I kept bumping into the, good Australian people, and talked about their footy every now and again, and that was great. It's like ending up in the oasis, in the desert.
Well, you might be in a bit of a desert. I know that you mentioned that you found your oasis in a cultural desert as far as AFL is concerned, but guess where I am? I'm in Wagga Wagga.
Oh, that's the footy capital in New South Wales.
Yes, it is. It's in the heart of AFL. It's a bit of a hybrid sort of town, this one. It's actually right on the line of this thing called the Barassi line. And that splits Australia into AFL zones, and it's actually the sporting capital of Australia because there's been so many very successful Australian rules footballers, so many successful rugby league players, so many successful Australian cricketers, swimmers, you name it, and they've all got it here.
Really? Can you name some of the famous footy players from Wagga Wagga? You gotta say Wagga Wagga. You can't abbreviate to Wagga.
No, you can't. There's been quite a few famous footballers that have come from Wagga Wagga, and one of them is Paul Kelly. I'm not talking about the journalist or the musician. I'm talking about Paul Kelly, the Brownlow medalist for the Sydney Swans.
Yes, he was great, wasn't he?
He was excellent. And there's also the King, Wayne Carey. He's from Wagga Wagga.
Oh, right. And Danaher brothers?
Yes, the Danaher brothers. I think there's about 40 Danaher brothers, but they're all from Wagga Wagga.
Great place.
Yes, it is. It is. I have been driving around Wagga Wagga looking for the Barassi line, and I haven't been able to find it anywhere. So,
wasn't there sort of landmarked and here, rugby league ends, or here real footy starts?
No, there's nothing around there. I've asked some of the locals whether they've heard of the Barassi line, if they can point me to where it could be. No one even knows where it is. So
I think that's what Wagga Wagga people should go, for, like, here, clearly mark the sort of landmark. I mean, you can tell by the ground, can't you?
Well, you can, but also on my way down to Wagga Wagga, I did come across the big merino. And as you know, Australia is very big on these big objects, such as the big merino, the big pineapple, the big prawn. And I'm suggesting that what should be set up in Wagga Wagga is the big football.
I agree with you. And in case you haven't remembered, I once wrote a book for the Japanese tourists about the big things in Australia. And I went to check out the big, all those obvious ones, but also a big potato in somewhere near Canberra. I can't remember, Robertson or whatever. And big penguin in, that was in Tasmania. And big prawn, big lobster, big harbour bridge, or was it small harbour bridge?
Probably would have been the small harbour bridge, but on your travels there was no sighting of a big football.
Not that I recall. I remember big avocado. That was the closest sort of pear-shaped thing.
Well, I think we'll have to get on to some council or a federal member to discuss this idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Wagga Wagga. It could be in Federation Square in Melbourne, which is also considered to be the home of football. And we could get something like a Klaus Oldenburg soft sculptures type of thing, like just a massive football. Like it's not made out of clay or brickwork. It's actually a real football, but just supersize. I think that would go down quite well in Federation Square.
As you said, Melbourne. I mean, let's go to the the home of sacred home of football, MCG. That would be the best place.
So MCG, the home of the big football, in more ways than one.
You heard it here first. Let's recap the last week. Now, how wrong were we? We predicted all those obvious ones, and I'm sorry to Collingwood, Freo, Gold Coast, and what other team we tipped and didn't win. Essendon was meant to win, but Carlton came up.
They certainly did.
That was a big round of a big upset.
Yes, and also we've forgotten the other big one, which was Richmond. They completed a boil over West Coast Eagles. So out of the 9 matches last weekend, we only got 3 out of the 9. That's a very poor performance. That's only 33% of the games that we got right. But some of the boilovers, if you are going to have a boilover, make it as big as possible. And there were 3 very, very big ones last weekend. They were starting on Friday night. Collingwood defeated the Sydney Swans
by 1 point. We talked about 1 point, winning by 1 point. Is that good or is that bad? That was good.
It was good. If you've got a 1 point victory under your belt, that's very, very good. A 1 point loss, not so good, obviously.
Yeah, and the Swans ended up 0-3. That's massive loss as far as the Swans concerned. But they fielded almost like second team. As we said, like a quarter of the team. I couldn't recognize who these players are. Never heard of them. And, other than obvious Buckley and Hannaberry and
Well, I think in some cases maybe not even the coach had heard of some of these players. So that's how very unusual these team selections were. But that was, that was a very, very big win by Collingwood on Friday night. And then there were a couple of other massive upsets as well on Saturday afternoon. Fremantle, bottom of the ladder, expected to possibly not win a game for the rest of the year. They defeated last year's premiers, Western Bulldogs, by 16 points in Perth. That was a massive boil over.
I think so. I mean, we talked about the Swans had all those unknown players. So did Freo. But it worked for Roscoe. Ross Lyon selected right players, and they were so sharp and accurate.
And there were 2 other mini boilovers, and that was the West Coast Eagles were defeated by Richmond. And the other game, there's a lot of similarities between these 2 games. Carlton defeated Essendon by around 15 points. Now, the 2 consistent factors in both of those matches, played on 2 separate days, was the weather. Poured down with rain for the entire match.
They we always say that in the wet weather, your teams are, the determination's tested, all the skills and, everything goes out of window with the rain. And, yes, Carlton, very impressive. I mean, but Richmond, are they real?
Well, that's a very good question. I know that we put a lot of emphasis on these numerical issues, such as a team being 3-0 after 3 rounds, or 0-3, or 2-1, 1-2, whatever the case may be. But I would like to point out what happened in 1975, which admittedly is a long, long time ago. But North Melbourne lost the first 4 games of the season. They were 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, and then 0-4. They were holding up the cup on grand final day in 1975.
1975. Who was the losing grand finalist?
Oh, they defeated Hawthorn. So Hawthorn was expected to win. So going from a position of 0-4, which is actually more severe than 0-3, ended up in those days they had a top 5 system for the finals, ended up in the top 5 and won the grand final.
So those teams at the bottom, Swans and Hawks, you reckon they still have a chance?
They still have a chance.
Very slim though.
It's very slim, but they still do have a chance. Now, speaking of those boilovers, there was one other boilover that we overlooked, and that was Hawthorn, completely flogged.
Annihilated.
That was not a loss, that was something else.
Yes, that was a devastating. I think it's got. You talked about the. You could still have a chance from 0-3, but that was demoralising. The way I see on the screen, Hawthorn was playing. All the players looked lethargic.
They looked very lethargic. They looked disinterested, and it gets back to the point that I've mentioned over the past couple of weeks that. Sure, Hawthorn were a very, very good team. They won 3 premierships in a row, played in 4 consecutive grand finals, but was it too much of a good thing? 2001, 2002, 2003, and they actually reached the grand final in 2004 or 2004.
Very much like Hawthorn for the last 3-4 years. If you look at it, they look, so invincible.
Yes, but something happened on Sunday. Now, we may end up having more egg on our face, considering that for quite a few weeks now we've been saying that this team will not win, they won't win a game for the rest of the year, they'll be humiliated, they'll be thrashed. We said that about Fremantle, we said that about Brisbane, we said that about Gold Coast, and here we are talking about redemption.
Now, what if we have to point the finger at? What's going on at Hawthorn? What do you reckon?
I think that it's possibly a combination of so many different factors. The fact that they extracted as much as possible from the Hawthorn teams over those past 4 or 5 years. They've been very, very high for a long, long time, and I don't think that's sustainable in modern day football. And so 4 consecutive grand finals. They've actually played 18 finals over the past 6 seasons, and that's like compressing an extra season of high quality football into those 6 years, and that takes a big toll. So I think that's one factor. The other factor is age.
Age, but I thought they got rid of aging champions of Sam Mitchell and Jordan Lewis, and they got the what's his name, Jager O'Meara.
Yes, they did. He's actually injured this weekend. Perhaps they ended up getting rid of the wrong type of aged players.
I've got this theory, I'm afraid, but, to name one player for blaming everything, but Ty Vickery factor.
Yes, what is it about Ty Vickery that interests you?
He is a sort of player who seems to have everything, but he seems to drag the team down. When he was playing for Richmond, he moved to Hawthorn this year. But, he tries hard. He looks like he's trying hard. But he's got skills, he's got body. He's obviously AFL standard. But somehow he drags teams down.
Well, sometimes there are players that just have bad luck, like irrespective of how good they are. Napoleon once said, when he was asked, what sort of soldiers would you like? Would you like strong soldiers or brilliant soldiers or tactically great soldiers? And he said, no, I don't want any of that. I want soldiers that have luck. And sometimes it's the same in football. You need players that have got good luck on their side.
I do agree. The other players, I mean, I could think of his, this year he's playing for Footscray, Travis Cloak. When he was playing for Collingwood, a couple of years he was inspiring, but last 2 or 3 years he was dragging the team down. Not just his skills. I mean, he was obviously not very good at kicking goals, but somehow, you pointed, it's luck, the stars.
Yes, it is. It is luck and stars, and sometimes the way that the planets align. Like we ended up having 6 upset results in the last round, and I put that down to something happening with the way that the planets were lined up or the stars were lined up. And
That's why this game is, best in the universe. Stars alignment affects the all the results. Collingwood beating Swans. You didn't think about it, but somehow the Mercury was up there and Venus was there.
I think it possibly had something more to do with Saturn, but there has to be some sort of explanation for it because in the Swans Collingwood match last Friday night, if the ball bounces another way, they pick up the ball, kick a goal, they win the game. But it didn't. And why is that?
I think, we talked about Collingwood has got all the midfielders, but no defence, no, forward. And that was a game. They kicked so many behinds, and I think something like they kicked accurately in the first half of game, but towards the end they kicked like a 2-12 or something ridiculous, but still managed to win. And that, keeps Buckley haters at bay for a little while, and this week it's going to be a real test against St Kilda.
Well, we'll be looking at that match later on when we preview round 4. But getting back to players within a particular team, there's been speculation that Max Gawn, he's gone. He's gone for a while. He ruined his knee or hamstring, I think it might have been, and all of the experts are now saying, well, that's Melbourne's season gone. And you're wondering, is that part of the headlines, the smart headlines that they like to write, or is it really a case? I actually thought that there were 22 players in a team, not just one.
No, but as we talked about, there is influential players and sometimes called key position, defenders, key position forward, key position or captain. Those people, you call it, lucky players or whatever. They're the ones lifting others, Like if you're playing in a good team, ordinary players can shine. If you're playing in the bad team, ordinary players sink. As Napoleon said, you want to have lucky players.
Yes, you do, and I'd fully agree with that idea.
And Max Gawn for Melbourne is one of those players. He looks so ugly, but he's so physical. And yes, I could play behind him, yes, with Max, like sort of lifting the team.
And is he lucky?
Oh, yeah, I reckon, unlucky to get injured, but is that sort of motivating players, inspirational. You need to have one of those players, or, if you can afford it, 22 of them, and the team will win.
Well, it's all about the luck. One great feature that we've had on the Protected Zone is to introduce new team songs for all the clubs, because most of them are not very good, and I believe that we should give them new ones. And so far we've had a look at Greater Western Sydney, Port Adelaide and the West Coast Eagles. Which team should we look at tonight?
I think we've got to go back to the, some of the foundation teams. And most of them are good based on, their songs are based on, popular songs at the time or well-known songs at the time. This week, we'll look at Collingwood.
Okay, well, for those of us out there listening that are not familiar with the Collingwood song, here it is.
Stick together to uphold the Magpie's name. See the barrackers are shouting as all barrackers should. Oh, the premiership's a cakewalk for the good old Collingwood.
So there's the Collingwood song. What can you make of that, Lynn?
Well, it's based on the, war recruiting song at the time of Boer War or something, The original song was called Goodbye, Dolly Gray, I'm Leaving or something, It's a sort of romantic song, soldiers departing for the Boer War.
So you're talking about the Boer War from 1899?
Yeah, around that time, I think. Where was the Boer War? Is that in somewhere in African continent?
Yes, in South Africa.
What's Australians got to do with that?
Well, that's a very good point.
And how did that end up, a football song?
Traditionally, teams did not have a song. They would just go out and play the match and then a bit of applause if they won the game. If they lost the game, well, too bad. And it was in the early 1920s that teams started developing songs, and it's unclear as to why this happened. I guess it's the same as, well, why do cultures change within popular music? I think it's just a sign of the times. Someone decided to have a team song, one club had a team song, and then others started to follow.
It's a big feature of Australian rules football. Tradition is you play the songs at the beginning of the game, and at the end, only one gets played. The winner takes all. I mean, somehow they should employ some singing coach, because it's a big part of, our footy culture to teach sort of, you would like to see players singing in chorus, harmony, because it's a big part of our culture.
Well, I fully agree, and there should be more theatre towards the end of the and at the end of the game when there's a victor. And yes, there possibly should be singing coaching for the players, because to be quite honest with you, their singing is absolutely atrocious. But towards the end of the program, we'll give Collingwood a new song and we'll be in for a surprise there.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think Collingwood should adopt a new song is the lyrics. Towards the end, the premiership is a cakewalk for the good old Collingwood. Now, when was the last time Collingwood won the flag? That was like 7 years ago.
Yes, that was in the 2010 season. But I think the lyrics of a team song need to use common language. Like, how many people do you see in the street when they're talking about things in general and they say, oh, yes, this will be a cakewalk? I haven't heard that term used ever outside of the Collingwood team song.
That's true. I mean, they need at least, update lyrics so that you can relate to modern people. Too arcane. Yeah, the song itself is arcane and, lyrics are arcane. Yeah, as you pointed out. Yeah, I've never heard anyone saying, oh, it's a cakewalk. What's that mean? You got to go to a cafe and order cafe latte and cake?
And go for a walk. Yeah, it's quite meaningless, but we will provide a new song for Collingwood at the end of the program.
Sunrise, 'cause it's only gonna get lighter.
Now, the protected zone is picking up quite a big following around, not just within Australia, but around the world. We actually have some listeners in Japan, konnichiwa to those people, and we have some people in Croatia, dobro večer to those people, and we had one person in Nigeria.
Nigeria?
Yes, in Nigeria. Nigeria's official language is English, so hello to the people in Nigeria. But we did receive a bit of audience feedback, and last week I did say that the first AFL night game was played in 1979, but this was actually not correct. They pointed out that it actually took place in 1952 in very strange circumstances.
Really?
Yes, very strange circumstances, and I'll explain what did happen. The AFL, which was known as the VFL at that stage, decided to play exhibition matches on the eastern seaboard, including one game at the Brisbane Exhibition Ground, which doesn't exist anymore. And they had 2 days of torrential rain, couldn't play on the Saturday, couldn't play on the Sunday, and they thought, what are we going to do? We've got to do something. And they played a match on Monday night at 7:30.
Did they have sort of floodlight and, facilities?
Well, they must have had some lights, and I'm not sure about the quality of the lights, but the match was actually quite successful. There were 25,000 people that attended the Brisbane Exhibition Ground, and it was a big match.
Who were playing?
It was a match between Essendon and Geelong. Geelong were beaten by 85 points, but they ended up winning the premiership in 1952. So a huge loss if you're playing at the Brisbane Exhibition Ground doesn't mean that you'll lose the premiership.
Does that mean the Essendon were more used to sort of night owl kind of thing, darkness?
Well, it's really hard to know. The research that I found on it was very scant, so it's hard to know exactly what took place there, but I'll locate the research and update our audience members later on.
If you're listening to it and if you were there, let us know what it was like, attending at one of the first night game.
Yeah, so it was 67 years ago, but I'm sure that there were some younger kids there or toddlers that might have been there at the match and can relive the experience. But yeah, we'd love to hear about that. Now, would you like to continue talking about the 1952 exhibition round, or would you like to look at round 4 of 2017?
Let's move to future this week. And in fact, as we speak, there's a game on, isn't it?
Yes, there is, and I know last week you castigated the AFL for delivering Thursday night matches for a whole range of different reasons. But yes, there is another match being played tonight, and it's between the West Coast Eagles and the Sydney Swans in Perth.
Oh, right. Who do you go for?
Historically, I realised that the Sydney Swans and the West Coast Eagles during 2005 and 2007 played 6 consecutive games where the total margins in all of those matches over 6 games was just 13 points.
Yes, that was a time, very tight, thrilling games, and then they win one of them won the premiership, and the next year they played the grand final again, and the other team won or something.
Yes, well, this is in 2005, they played a qualifying final, won by 4 points by West Coast, and they played the grand final, won by the Sydney Swans by 4 points. Then the year after that, they played a mid-season match where it was decided by 2 points. And then after that, they played a qualifying final where the Swans won by a point. Then the grand final, West Coast won by a point. And then the first round in 2007, the West Coast Eagles won by a point. So they had 3 consecutive games decided by a point. What are the chances of that happening?
I think it could be, happening tonight. Between the traditional, sort of newish traditional rivals, the Battle of Burrs.
Yes, well, it is a big match over there, and they are playing in Perth. Sydney have actually had a very good record over the past 10 years against the West Coast Eagles. So it's something like out of the past 10 games, they've won 9 of them, but I'm throwing that historical form out the window, and I think the West Coast Eagles should win quite handsomely tonight.
Yeah, Swans weren't all that hot last week, and even though West Coast doesn't have Jack Darling and the Lewis Jetta, all those players, you reckon the Eagles, Big Bird, will win?
Yes, I believe they'll fly high tonight.
and shavings for rent here. Power lines through all the summer woods, my dear. But I'm hoping, and that hope is linked to your tears. Let love be your only teacher. Andromeda seems restless tonight. Why do this love and madness?
Now tomorrow there's a match on Good Friday between North Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. First match ever on a Good Friday. Is this good for religion or is it good for football?
I was about to say that. Good Friday. What's that mean? Can you elucidate? Can you tell me, for a non-religious person like myself, coming from a different religion, what is Good Friday? Is there a bad Friday?
No, there isn't a bad Friday. There's Friday the 13th, but it's known as Good Friday, even though it's the day that Jesus was put on the cross.
Or is it good?
Well, that's a good question, but I don't know enough about the historical factors to know why it was called Good Friday as opposed to, well, it's not a Good Friday if Jesus Christ was put on the cross, but for a long, long time it's been a sacred religious day where everything's closed on Good Friday, and football is now being played for the first time ever on Good Friday.
It's like claiming the Anzac Day. It used to be a modern sacred day, but these days football is played, and a new religion of football is taking over old religion.
I believe it is, and also the big religions in Australia today, in the contemporary world, are shopping and football.
Shop and football. Yes, it's a good combination. Now, North Melbourne, Western Bulldogs. Now, Dogs, surprise loss last week against Freo, and the North, thereabouts. But who do you go for?
I'm going for the Western Bulldogs to bounce back, but in this contemporary age of football, it's very hard to know who's at the top and who's at the bottom. Let's say 5 or 6 years ago when we had all the expansion teams coming into the competition, you just knew that they were going to lose every week. But this year it's very even. It's very hard to know who will come up with an upset victory. Like we had 6 upset victories last weekend, and this could be another one, but I still think the Western Bulldogs should win.
Okay, it's a milestone game for Lindsay Thomas for North, and Big Travis Cloak, former champion of Collingwood. He's playing his 250th game. I'll go for North.
Well, they have to win a game at some point, so what better time to start on Good Friday? It will be a very good Friday for them if they manage to upset the Western Bulldogs. And then we get on to Saturday where normal transmission resumes. We've got 4 matches. Can we call it a Super Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, following the Good Friday and the Bad Friday for one team. But, you used to have 6 games at 2:15 on Saturday afternoon. All the games are played on Saturday afternoon at the same time. I mean, it's not good for the TV audience unless you expect to watch the replay, but it all happened on the same day. It's like going to the church on Sunday. Everyone's going to the church, and so it's sort of kind of bouncing back from that playing footy on Good Friday. Yes, back to a traditional Winter Saturday being the footy day. So it's good.
Yes, it is good. And if football is your religion, well, instead of having one time to go to your church, you can go to church on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, especially in round 4.
That's watering down. Is it going to extend to, Wednesday night footy and Tuesday night footy and Monday night footy and spread all over like rugby league? It's just so boring. You have to have it sacred day.
And Saturday 2:15 would be the sacred day and the sacred time.
Yep.
Yes, there isn't actually a match at 2:15, the sacred time on Saturday, but there is a match at 1:45 between Melbourne and Fremantle.
It's a difficult one. Freo don't travel very well. even though they, played very well last week. And Melbourne kind of depleted. Max Gawn is gone, as we talked about, and it's a difficult one. Who do you go for?
I'll go for Melbourne because it's being played at Melbourne and it's being played at the MCG.
Home ground.
Yes, the home ground advantage. I think you should always go for the home ground advantage. Something like 66% of the teams that are playing at home win their matches. And I think I'm 66% sure that Melbourne will win that game. That's good enough for me. Now, there's also a match at 4:35 on Saturday, and it's being played in Canberra between Greater Western Sydney and Port Adelaide.
Well, Giants expected to play a big role in the finals this year, and they're slowly getting it together. And also, and the Port flying high. Oh no, different song. Power to the top. Yeah. I mean, they were beaten by Adelaide in the showdown last week, but they're still a good team. So, Giants and Port, who do you go for?
I'll go for the Greater Western Sydney.
Yeah, I'll go for the Giants too.
And then in the evening, it's a non-traditional time zone, but it's Carlton versus Gold Coast. This is impossible to predict.
Well, the winners from last week, both against expectation, came out winning, and Carlton, in the wet, they showed a lot of determination. They didn't show much skill, but determination. While Gold Coast, they're slick against Hawthorn. They made the Hawthorn look, as I said, lethargic. They look old and tired and disinterested. While Gold Coast look like, hey, we came here to play and we'll show you how.
Well, they certainly did come to play last weekend, but where was the Gold Coast team in rounds 1 and 2? So it's a question of which Gold Coast team will turn up in round 4 on Saturday.
And it's not going to be wet, It's probably roof is closed, and so Carlton can't play wet game footy.
Well, I'll go for Gold Coast.
Sun's shining, no rain.
Now, a big match on Saturday night, roughly at around the same time, is being played in Adelaide. It's Adelaide versus Essendon.
Why do you call it big game?
Because it's being played in Adelaide. It's always a big game when it's played in Adelaide. They always get a crowd of 50,000 plus. Doesn't matter who they play, they always pack the stadium.
All right, yeah, I'm happy about that. Adelaide's been form side, and they look so good.
They do look very good, and I think their ball movement has been very, very slick. Their delivery to the forwards. It's going to be usually cool on a Saturday night in Adelaide, but it's warm weather. It's fairly still. Adelaide are a team that just plays very, very well when the conditions are still. So I think they'll romp it in.
I think I do agree with the Crows, and very, very impressed by their forward. Eddie Betts kicking goals, as you said, from anywhere, everywhere. And they have that handsome guy, Tex Walker.
Oh, yes, they do. He's very handsome. I love his moustache. I've mentioned this so many times before, but he has got the best moustache, not just in the AFL.
In the entire universe.
In the universe. AFL is a universal game, but he's got the best mustache in the universe. So that's all the Saturday matches gone. Sunday, of course, is a different day, and we've got another grand final replay. Can you believe it? It's the grand final replay from 2010. Grand final replay of a replay. There were actually two grand finals played in 2010 between Collingwood and St Kilda. What can we expect to see on Sunday between Collingwood and St Kilda?
I think Collingwood, with the new team song, would roll St Kilda. The reason being, they got the champion footballer forward, Jamie Elliott, and he's going to, play a big part. That is one player Collingwood was missing for the last 3 rounds. As we said, as we discussed, they've got the top-class midfielders, but obviously, defenders are not gelling together. I mean, last week, defense looked good, but forward is a still big, question mark attached. Darcy Moore, a lot of potential, son of Peter Moore.
Yes, he won 2 Brownlow medals.
Yes. So Darcy, a lot is expected from Darcy, but so far he hasn't played up to his expectation. While St Kilda expected a lot from this year, but still, haven't got to that stage yet.
So they'll be found wanting.
Yes, Collingwood.
There's another match. I'm not really that interested in it, but I'll go through it anyway. It's Brisbane versus Richmond.
Why aren't you interested? Richmond, are they real deal or just easy run so far?
It's very hard to say. Are they April premiers? Is coming into May as well. Will they be April and May premiers? I'm not so sure what they'll be this year. I think we need to wait a few more weeks before we see how Richmond's season will pan out. Brisbane, they've been okay so far, not great, but you can see that they've got a lot of inexperience on their team. I'm going for Richmond.
I think I'll go for the Lions because they got the this week Clay Beams. He's a class.
Well, we'll see what happens. So you think the planets might align for upsets for a second week in a row?
Oh, you call it upset. All right. Yeah, Richmond upset. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, it's upset. I'll go for the Lions.
And the final match of the round is a big match. It's Hawthorn versus Geelong. Will we see redemption for Hawthorn?
This is another grand final rematch, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's the grand final rematch from 2008 and 1989 and 1961.
Now, Hawthorn, it's a very, very important game. You mentioned that you could still win from 0-4, but Alistair Clarkson doesn't want to lose another one. And on the other hand, Geelong, thereabouts, they're getting into the slowly but surely, like the Cats always do for the last 10, 15 years or whatever. It's a hard one. I'll go for the Cats.
So you've been listening to the Protected Zone, where we talk about everything related to the AFL. It's the best game in the universe, not just in Australia. And we've wrapped up all the big games of the round 4, and we'll be speaking to you at the same time next week.
And at the Protected Zone.
Yes, so I'm Eddie J, and my co-host in Japan is
Linton Anam.
And this week we go out with the new Collingwood team song.
I was looking to see some dreams straight from your fingers.